You don't buy a 5-bedroom Victorian farmhouse on 4 acres of land for $12,000 because you're lucky. You buy it because someone else is desperate to get rid of it. I know that now. I wish I knew it 3 days ago when I signed the deed with a shaking hand, thinking I had just pulled off the heist of the century. I needed this. I needed to get away from the city, away from the divorce lawyers, and away from the crushing debt that felt like it was physically compressing my chest every time I opened a utility bill. So when the listing popped up on Zillow, some unincorporated township deep in rural Kansas, a place so far off the interstate that the GPS signal cuts out twice on the way there, I didn't ask questions. The realtor, a sweaty guy named Miller who wouldn't make eye contact, practically threw the keys at me. He didn't even come inside for the walkthrough. He just stood by his sedan, engine running, watching the cornfields like he expected something to walk out of them. He told me the price was low because of structural settling and market remoteness. That was a lie. The structure is fine. The foundation is solid stone. The remoteness, however, is heavier than I expected. Kansas isn't just flat here, it's aggressive. It's an ocean of dry, rustling corn that stretches out to a horizon that feels too far away. When the sun goes down, it's not like the city. The dark here is absolute. It has weight. It presses against the windows. I spent the first day unpacking boxes and trying to ignore the silence. It's the kind of silence that rings in your ears, high and sharp, like the whine of an old tube TV. I set up my master bedroom in the master bedroom on the second floor. The air in the house was stale, smelling of dry rot and something metallic like ozone or copper. I found the note on the kitchen island around 6 p.m. It wasn't there when I arrived. I am certain of that. I had wiped that counter down with bleach the moment I walked in. But there it was, a single sheet of yellow legal pad paper, weighted down by a rusty iron nail. The handwriting was frantic, jaggy, barely legible, like someone was writing it in the dark while their hand was trembling. It didn't say "Welcome home." It didn't provide instructions for the water heater or the breaker box. It was a list of rules. I'm a rational guy. I work in logistics. I deal in facts, numbers, and hard data. My first thought was that this was a prank by the locals, some hazing ritual for the new city slicker. But then I remembered the realtor's face. I remembered the way he looked at the tree line. And I remembered that I hadn't seen another house for 10 miles. I'm going to read the list to you. I'm reading it because I'm alone here. And if I put this on the internet, if I make this real for someone else, maybe I won't feel like I'm losing my mind. Rule number 1. Keep the blackout curtains in the living room drawn at all times. Do not check behind them, no matter what time of day it is. If you see light bleeding through the fabric that looks blue or flickers like a television screen, leave the room immediately. Do not acknowledge it. It isn't a TV. There is no signal out here. Rule number 2. You are going to hear a dog barking near the tool shed. It will sound like a large dog, perhaps a German Shepherd, in distress. It will sound like it is hurt. We do not have a dog. The nearest neighbor is 15 miles away. Do not go to the shed. Do not bring food to the shed. If the barking turns into a human voice mimicking a bark, lock the back door and put a chair under the handle. Rule number 3. The water in the upstairs bathroom is finicky. If you turn on the tap and the water runs clear, you are safe to wash up. If the water runs thick and black, turn it off immediately and say, "Not for me, thank you," in a polite, firm voice. Wait 10 minutes before trying again. If you fail to be polite, the pipes will start to groan. You don't want to hear what they say. Rule number 4. This is rural Kansas. We have storms. However, if you hear the tornado siren going off, check the date. The county tests the sirens on the first Wednesday of the month at noon. If you hear the siren at night or on a Tuesday or any time that isn't that specific testing window, do not look out the windows. Go to the center of the hallway. Sit down, cover your ears. The sound is not coming from a siren. It is coming from the sky, but it isn't wind. Rule number 5. If you see a man standing at the edge of the cornfield wearing a denim jacket and a wide-brimmed hat, do not wave at him. He is not a farmer. He is not trespassing. He has been here longer than the house. If he is facing away from you, you can continue your yard work. If he is facing you, go inside and lock the doors. If you see him standing closer than the fence line, hide in the pantry until you stop smelling wet earth and sulfur. Rule number 6. The basement door must remain shut. I put a padlock on it for a reason. You might hear knocking coming from the other side. It will be rhythmic. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 knocks. It will sound like knuckles against wood. Then it will sound like fingernails scratching. Eventually, it will sound like a voice you know. It might sound like your mother, your ex-wife, or your child. It will beg you to open the door. It will say it's cold. It will say it's dark. Do not open the door. Whatever is down there knows your memories, but it does not know mercy. Rule number 7. This is the most important one. If you wake up between 3 a.m. and 3:33 a.m. and you feel like someone is standing over your bed, do not open your eyes. Lay perfectly still. Slow your breathing. Visualize a brick wall. They are checking to see if you are awake. If you open your eyes, you will see them. And once you see them, they can touch you. I laughed when I first read it. I actually laughed out loud in that empty, echoing kitchen. I crumbled the paper up and tossed it into the trash can. I opened a beer, sat on the porch, and watched the sun dip below the corn. It was beautiful, quiet, peaceful. That was 3 hours ago. It's dark now, pitch black, the kind of dark that eats flashlight beams. I'm sitting in the living room with my laptop. I haven't unpacked the TV yet. About 20 minutes ago, I heard it. Out back, near the old, sagging tool shed, barking. It sounded exactly like a German shepherd, high-pitched yelps fading into a low, guttural growl. I love dogs. My first instinct was to grab my flashlight and go check. I actually stood up, hand on the doorknob, boots laced. I was going to go help the poor thing. Then the barking changed. It didn't stop. It modulated. The rhythm stayed the same, the volume stayed the same, but the timbre shifted. It stopped sounding like a throat and started sounding like static, like a radio skipping between stations. And then, for a split second, the bark sounded like a man shouting the word woof from the bottom of a well. I froze. My hand hovered over the deadbolt. Woof, the voice screamed from the darkness. Woof, woof. It sounded wet. I locked the door. I grabbed a dining chair and jammed it under the handle, just like the note said. As soon as the chair legs scraped against the floor, the noise outside stopped instantly. Silence. Absolute ringing silence. I retrieved the crumpled yellow note from the trash can. I smoothed it out on the table. I've read it 5 times now. I'm writing this because I need a record. I'm writing this because the water in the bathroom just ran black, and I forgot to say thank you. The pipes are groaning now. It sounds like a low hum, deep in the walls, getting louder. And I think I made a mistake. I think I know why the realtor kept the car running. I'm going to try to sleep. If I don't update this tomorrow, assume I opened my eyes at 3:33 a.m. I found the paper taped to the back of the fuse box in the basement. The handwriting was jagged, pressed so hard into the page that the paper had torn in the loops of the letters. It wasn't written by someone sane, but it was written by someone who wanted to survive. Here is exactly what it said. Rule number 1. The Kansas wind is loud, often rattling the siding and whistling through the chimney. This is normal. However, if the wind suddenly stops and the silence becomes absolute, drop to the floor immediately. Do not look out the windows. There are tall pay things that stride through the wheat fields. They have no knees, and they are looking for silhouettes standing in the window frames. If you are on the ground, they might mistake you for furniture. If they see you, they will try to come inside. They can compress their bodies to fit through the keyhole. Rule number 2. You will occasionally hear an Amber Alert buzz on your phone, even if you have no signal. The notification will read, "Do not look at the moon. Do not go outside to check. Do not verify this with the news." The light outside is not moonlight. It is a spotlight. If you step into it, you will feel a burning sensation under your skin. This is your bones liquefying. Stay in the center of the room and wait for the sun. Rule number 3. There is a man who works the night shift at the gas station 3 miles down the road. His name is supposedly Earl. If you go there for supplies and Earl is wearing a name tag that says guest, do not speak to him. Do not make eye contact. Pay with cash, leave the exact change, and back out of the store slowly. The entity wearing Earl's skin hasn't figured out how to blink yet. If you point it out, it will become hostile. Rule number 4. The basement door must remain locked between the hours of 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. During this hour, you will hear the sound of a family eating dinner downstairs. You will hear silverware scraping on plates, laughter, and the sound of meat being carved. Do not investigate. You live alone. If you open the door, the dinner conversation will stop, and all the chairs will scrape back at once. You are not the guest. You are the main course. Rule number 5. If you wake up and smell copper or old pennies, do not open your eyes. This means one of them is standing directly over your bed, breathing on your face. It is testing your sleep paralysis. If you flinch, if your breathing changes rhythm, or if you open your eyes, it will know you are awake. It wants to take your place. Lie perfectly still until you hear the rooster crow or the smell fades to the scent of rotting earth. Rule number 6. Keep a firearm in the nightstand with a single bullet. This is not for self-defense against the entities. Bullets pass through them like smoke. If you see the walls of your bedroom begin to breathe, or if the hallway stretches out into an infinite corridor that looks like the back rooms of an office building, use the bullet on yourself. What happens when the house digests you takes 1,000 years in subjective time, and you will be conscious for every second of the digestion. Rule number 7. Never acknowledge the extra room. The blueprints say this is a 3-bedroom house. Sometimes you will count 4 doors in the upstairs hallway. If you see the 4th door, simply walk past it. Do not look at the handle. Do not listen to the weeping coming from inside. It sounds like your voice. It sounds like you, begging to be let out. It is a time loop. If you open that door, you are the one stuck inside, and the thing that was crying will walk out into the hall wearing your body, free at last. The price was the first red flag. You don't get 3,000 square feet of Victorian farmhouse on 40 acres of Kansas soil for the price of a used Honda Civic unless something is fundamentally broken. I told myself it was the location. I told myself it was the economy. I'm a logical man. I work in data analysis. I look at numbers, I find patterns, and I draw conclusions. But the data I'm about to give you doesn't make sense. I'm writing this down now, typing it out on a laptop that's running on battery power because I'm too afraid to plug it into the wall, just so there is a record. If you are reading this, do not come looking for the property. Do not check the GPS coordinates. Just listen. I arrived at the property at 4 p.m. That golden hour in the Midwest is deceptive. The wheat fields look like an ocean of gold, swaying in a wind that you can't feel inside the car. But once I stepped out, the silence hit me. It wasn't the quiet of nature. Nature isn't quiet. Crickets chirp, wind rustles, birds call out. This was a vacuum. It was the heavy, muffled silence of a recording booth before the track starts. It felt like the air pressure had dropped 10 degrees. The house stood in the center of the plot. It was a white, 2-story structure with a wraparound porch. Standard rural architecture, except for the proportions. The front door looked slightly too tall. The windows on the second floor were spaced unevenly, like eyes on a face that had been drawn by someone who had never seen a human before. I shook off the feeling. It was just an old house. Old houses have quirks. I walked up the porch steps, and the wood didn't creak. It felt solid. Too solid, like concrete painted to look like timber. I unlocked the front door. The key turned with a wet, slick sound, not the metallic click. I pushed it open. The smell hit me first. I expected dust, maybe mold, or that distinct scent of old paper and dry rot. Instead, the air inside smelled like ozone. It smelled like the back of an old television set that's been running for 3 days straight. Static electricity prickled the hair on my arms.
The entryway was grand, a sweeping staircase leading up into the darkness of the second floor, but the lighting was wrong. The sun was still up outside, but the light coming through the windows seemed filtered, dim and yellow, like it was passing through old parchment. I brought my boxes in. I set up my sleeping bag in the living room because I didn't want to go upstairs yet. I told myself it was because I was tired from the drive. The truth was, the staircase made me nauseous. Every time I looked at the banister, the geometry seemed to shift in my peripheral vision. If I stared directly at it, it was fine.
But out of the corner of my eye, it looked like the stairs went down, not up. I found the list on the kitchen island. It was a single sheet of yellow legal pad paper, weighed down by a pristine red apple. The apple looked fake, waxy, perfect. I didn't touch it. I picked up the paper. The handwriting was jagged, pressed so hard into the page that the paper had nearly torn. It didn't say welcome. It didn't say house rules. It just started listing them. Rule 1. Do not acknowledge the sudden drop in temperature. If you shiver, they know you can feel them. Rule 2. The hallway on the second floor is 15 feet long. If you start walking down it and it feels longer than 15 feet, stop immediately. Close your eyes, walk backward until your back hits the wall. Do not turn around. Rule 3. If the landline rings, do not answer it. There is no landline connected to this house. Rule 4. Mirrors are for checking your appearance, not your surroundings. If you see something standing behind you in the reflection, do not look away from your own eyes. Maintain eye contact with yourself until the reflection returns to normal. Rule 5. The basement door is locked. If you hear scratching from the other side, it is just the house settling. If you hear a child crying, it is just the wind. If you hear your own voice asking to be let in, burn sage immediately and leave the house for exactly 1 hour. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. It sounded hollow in the empty kitchen, bouncing off the linoleum surfaces that were just a little too shiny. I thought it was a prank, the previous owners playing a joke on the city slicker who bought their money pit. I crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash can. That was my first mistake. The sun began to set, and that's when the atmosphere shifted. You know that feeling when you're in a grocery store late at night and the hum of the refrigerator aisle seems to get louder? That buzz that drills into the base of your skull? That sound started to rise from the floorboards. It was a low-frequency vibration, almost beneath the range of hearing, but I could feel it in my teeth. I decided to explore the ground floor to distract myself. I walked into the dining room. It was empty, save for a chandelier that looked too heavy for the ceiling. I stood there, looking at the wallpaper. It was a floral pattern, faded roses. As I watched, the pattern seemed to breathe. The roses weren't moving, but the space between them was expanding and contracting. I blinked, rubbing my eyes. Fatigue. It had to be fatigue. I went back to the living room to grab a bottle of water. That's when I noticed the hallway, the one leading to the downstairs bathroom. It was a short corridor, maybe 10 feet max.
At the end of it was a white door, but as I looked at it, the door seemed miles away. The walls of the hallway stretched, elongating like taffy. The perspective was all wrong. It looked like a camera dolly zoom, the background moving away while the foreground stayed the same. I froze. Rule 2. The note mentioned the second floor, but this was the ground floor. Did the rules apply everywhere? My heart started hammering against my ribs. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead, instantly freezing in the sudden draft that swept through the room. Rule 1. Do not acknowledge the sudden drop in temperature. I clenched my jaw. I forced my muscles to stay rigid. I didn't shiver. I didn't rub my arms. I stared at the elongated hallway, and I forced my brain to process it as an optical illusion. I turned my back on it, moving deliberately slow, and went to the kitchen. The trash can was upright. I had kicked it earlier when I threw the note away. I remembered it sliding against the cabinets. Now it was perfectly centered on a floor tile. I walked over and looked inside. The crumpled ball of yellow paper was gone. I looked at the kitchen island. The yellow paper was back, smooth, flat. The red apple was sitting on top of it again. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't a prank. This was physics breaking down. This was the back rooms, the glitch in the matrix, the skinwalker in the woods type of wrongness. I walked over to the note. I needed to read the rest. I had stopped at 5. Rule 6. The television in the den is from 1998. It is not plugged in. If it turns on, do not listen to the broadcast. It will sound like an Amber Alert. It will describe a vehicle identical to yours. It will describe a person identical to you. Do not listen. Hum a song until the screen goes black. Rule 7. The house breathes at 3:33 a.m. You will hear it. An intake of breath that lasts for a minute. Do not exhale while the house is inhaling. Rule 8. There is no dog. If you feel fur brush against your leg, do not look down. Do not pet it. Just say, "Good boy," and keep walking. Rule 9. If you wake up and the room is perfectly symmetrical, close your eyes and roll off the bed. You are not in your room. Rule 10. They are shy. They watch from the corners. If you see a shadow that is darker than the others, do not shine a flashlight on it. Light makes them aggressive. I grabbed the paper. This time I didn't crumple it. I folded it neatly and put it in my pocket. I needed a weapon. I'm a rational man, but my lizard brain was screaming that I was being hunted. I grabbed a heavy iron skillet from one of my boxes. It felt ridiculous, holding a frying pan in an empty house, but the weight was comforting. I went back to the living room.
It was fully dark outside now. The windows were black squares, reflecting the interior of the room. And that's when I saw it. In the reflection of the bay window, behind my own shoulder, there was a shape. It wasn't a ghost, it wasn't a monster. It looked like a mannequin made of TV static. Gray, fuzzy, vibrating edges. It was standing right behind me, tall, its head almost touching the ceiling. It didn't have a face, just a swirling vortex of white noise where the features should be. Rule 4. Mirrors are for checking your appearance, not your surroundings. This wasn't a mirror, but it was a reflection. The logic had to hold. I could feel the cold radiating off the thing behind me. It felt like standing in front of an open freezer. Every instinct I had screamed at me to turn around, to swing the skillet, to run, to scream. But the note was the only data I had. I stared at my own reflection in the glass. I locked eyes with myself. I saw the terror in my own pupils. They were dilated, wide black discs swallowing the iris. I focused on the bags under my eyes. I focused on the stubble on my chin. I refused to shift my focus to the static figure looming over my left shoulder. I could hear it. It sounded like wet sizzling, like bacon frying in the next room. The sound was right by my ear. "Look at me," a voice whispered. It wasn't a human voice. It sounded like a radio scanning through channels, words spliced together from different stations. "Look at me." I stared into my own eyes. "My name is David," I whispered to the glass. "I am 34 years old. I bought this house for $30,000. "Look at me," the static hissed. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It didn't feel like fingers. It felt like pins and needles, like my arm had fallen asleep, but magnified 1,000 times. The numbness started spreading down my bicep. I didn't blink. I kept my eyes locked on my reflection. Tears were streaming down my face now, hot tracks on cold skin. The static shape shifted. It leaned closer. I could see the gray fuzz obscuring the background in the reflection. "David," it mimicked my voice perfectly. "Turn around." "I am a data analyst," I said, my voice shaking. "I live in Kansas." I held the gaze for what felt like an hour. My eyes burned. The static noise grew so loud my ears started to ring. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the pressure lifted. The cold vanished. The static cleared. I was alone in the reflection. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. The smell of ozone was overpowering now, mixed with the metallic scent of copper. I checked my shoulder. The shirt was burnt, a handprint scorched into the fabric, the edges fraying. I scrambled back,
pushing myself against the wall. I needed to leave.
I needed to get to my car and drive until I hit the ocean. I stood up, gripping the skillet, and ran for the front door. I grabbed the handle. It wouldn't turn. I unlocked it. I tried again. Locked. I pulled the keys from my pocket, my hands trembling so bad I dropped them twice. I jammed the key into the lock. It wouldn't fit. I looked at the key. It was the same key I used to enter. I looked at the lock. The keyhole was gone. The brass plate was smooth, unbroken metal. No keyhole, no deadbolt, just a handle that wouldn't turn. I ran to the window. I pulled the latch. Stuck. I grabbed a dining chair and smashed it against the glass. The chair bounced off. The glass didn't shatter. It didn't even crack. It made a dull thud, like I had hit a wall of plexiglass 6 inches thick. I was trapped. A sound cut through the silence. A high-pitched digital beep. I froze. It was coming from the den. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of the emergency broadcast system. Rule 6. The television is not plugged in. If it turns on, do not listen. I could see the blue light flickering from the doorway of the den. The harsh strobe light effect illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. A robotic voice started speaking. The following message is transmitted at the request of local authorities. I covered my ears. I started humming. I didn't know what to hum. The first thing that came to my head was a nursery rhyme. Mary had a little lamb. Authorities are searching for a suspect. The TV voice droned, loud, cutting through my hands. Driving a 2018 gray sedan. That was my car. I hummed louder. Market was white as snow. Suspect is identified as David Miller. That was my name. Suspect is deceased. Repeat, suspect is deceased. The body has been missing for 3 days. I screamed the song, Everywhere That Mary Went. I squeezed my eyes shut. I curled into a ball on the hallway floor. The TV volume increased, vibrating the floorboards. It wasn't just a voice anymore, it was a screech, a digital tear in reality, screaming my name and my death over and over again. Then, silence. Absolute, ringing silence. I stayed on the floor for a long time. I don't know how long. Time feels different here. My watch stopped working the moment I crossed the threshold. The hands are spinning backwards at a steady rate. I eventually stood up. I walked to the kitchen. The apple on the note had rotted. It looked like it had been sitting there for months, collapsed into a pile of black mush and white mold. But I had only been here a few hours. I turned the paper over. There was more writing on the back, writing I hadn't seen before. Rule 11. If you try to leave, the house will be offended. Do not offend the house. Rule 12. You are safe as long as the lights are on, but the generator is in the shed outside, and the grid in this part of Kansas is unreliable. Rule 13. Do not fall asleep. They will try to surgically remove your eyelids so you can watch them forever. The lights flickered. A low buzz. Then darkness. Total darkness. And then, from the top of the stairs, I heard it. The sound of a marble dropping onto the wood floor. Click. Roll. Click. Then the sound of bare feet, wet, slapping footsteps, coming down the stairs. I am hiding in the pantry now. I have my laptop. The battery is at 12%. The footsteps are circling the kitchen island. I can hear them sniffing the air. It sounds like a dog, but the inhales are too long. Rule 8. There is no dog. I don't know how long I can stay quiet. The pantry door has a gap at the bottom. I can see the shadow standing there. It's not moving. It's just waiting. And the worst part? The pantry is getting smaller. I can feel the walls pressing in against my shoulders. The shelves are lowering. The house is digesting me. I'm going to hit send on this script now. If you're a content creator, if you're reading this for a video, please warn them.
Warn everyone. There are places in the American Midwest that are not on any map. There are pockets of silence that you should never drive into. The shadow just knocked on the pantry door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. A voice is whispering from the other side. It sounds exactly like my mother. She's been dead for 10 years. David, are you in there? It's time to go home, David. Open the door. I'm not opening the door, but I think the lock is turning from the outside. Remember the rules. If you ever find yourself in a house that smells like ozone and silence, run. Run before the sun goes down. Run before the hallway stretches. The door is opening. God, it's so bright.
It has been 48 hours since I slept. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely hit the keys on this laptop, but I need to get this down. I need to document the breach while the memory is still searing hot in my mind. If you are reading this and you ever find a listing for a farmhouse in Osborne County, Kansas with a price that looks too good to be true, keep scrolling. Burn your computer if you have to. Just don't sign the deed. I told you about the list of 19 rules I found taped to the inside of the pantry door. I thought I was smart. I thought I was logical. I treated it like a game or a quirky Airbnb instruction manual. I followed the rules about the lights. I followed the rules about the mirrors. But last night, I got complacent. I messed up rule number 4. Rule number 4 states, if you hear the heavy iron latch of the basement door lift between the hours of 3 a.m. and 3:33 a.m., you must immediately walk to the front porch. Do not run, do not vocalize, and under no circumstances are you to look behind you until you have crossed the threshold of the front door. It sounds simple, just walk, don't look back. But reading a rule is different than living it when the silence of the Kansas plains is pressing against your eardrums like water. It was 3:12 a.m. I was in the kitchen, staring out the window at the cornfields. The moon was bright enough that the stalks looked like an ocean of silver spears. I was drinking water, trying to ignore the feeling that I was being watched from out there in the dark. That's when I heard it. Clank. The sound was heavy, metallic, unmistakable. It came from the hallway behind me. The heavy iron latch of the basement door, the one I had padlocked shut. My heart didn't just skip a beat, it hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The silence that followed was heavy, thick, the kind of silence that has a weight. I knew what I had to do. My brain screamed at me to run, to sprint, to dive through the kitchen window and take my chances with the coyotes in the field. But the rule was specific. Do not run. I set my glass down on the counter. My fingers were numb. I turned my body toward the hallway, keeping my eyes fixed on the floorboards. I couldn't look at the basement door. I knew it would be open. I knew the darkness spilling out of it would be absolute. I took the first step. The floorboard groaned. In this house, every noise sounds like a gunshot. I took the second step. That's when I heard the breathing. It wasn't coming from the basement anymore. It was right behind me, close, so close I could feel the temperature drop, raising the hairs on the back of my neck. It was a wet, rattling breath. It sounded like someone trying to inhale through a throat full of fluid. Walk. Just walk. I focused on the front door. It was only 20 feet away. It felt like miles. The hallway stretched out, distorting like one of those camera tricks in a horror movie. The wallpaper seemed to pulse. Step 3. Step 4. The breathing got louder, and then the footsteps started. They weren't footsteps. They were wet slaps, like raw meat hitting the hardwood floor. Slap, drag, slap, drag. It was matching my pace. It was mocking me. I clenched my jaws so hard I thought my teeth would shatter. My body was flooded with cortisol. Every instinct I had as a human being, every primal alarm bell left over from our days living in caves, was screaming at me to turn around and fight, or to run. But I kept my pace slow, deliberate. Then came the smell.
copper and ozone, old blood and electricity. It filled my nose, making me gag. David. The voice froze my blood. It wasn't a monster's voice. It wasn't a demon. It was my mother. My mother who has been dead for 6 years. David, please, it hurts. The voice was coming from directly behind my left ear. It was so clear. I could hear the tremble in her tone, the pain. It sounded exactly like her in the hospital, exactly like the last time I spoke to her. I faltered. I stopped moving. David, why won't you look at me? Don't you love me? I squeezed my eyes shut. I knew it wasn't her. I knew this was the house playing tricks. I knew this was the trap. But the grief is a heavy thing. It hooks into you. It drags you down. David, help me. I broke. I didn't mean to. It was a reflex, a moment of weakness born of guilt and terror. I pivoted on my heel. I turned around. I looked back. I didn't see my mother. I saw something that defied geometry. Standing in the middle of the hallway, illuminated by the moonlight spilling from the kitchen, was a thing that looked like it had been constructed from the leftover parts of 100 different people. It was tall, too tall. Its head scraped the ceiling. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, pulled tight over jagged bones. But it was the face that broke me. It didn't have a face, not really. It was a smooth surface of flesh, like a thumb. But in the center, there was a single vertical slit that was opening and closing, mimicking the words of my mother. David. The slit widened. It wasn't a mouth. It was a tear in reality. Inside, I saw rows of teeth, human teeth, dog teeth, things that looked like needles. And then it smiled. The rule says, do not look behind you. It doesn't say what happens if you do. I found out. The moment our eyes, or whatever it used to see, met, the air was sucked out of the room. The pressure dropped so fast my ears popped. The thing didn't move like a person. It didn't walk. It glitched.
1 second, it was 10 feet away. The next second, it was 5. It jerked forward in a series of staccato snaps, like a video buffering. Panic took the wheel. Logic was gone. The rules didn't matter anymore because I had already signed my death warrant. I screamed. I spun back around and I ran. I sprinted for the door. I could hear it behind me. The wet slapping sound changed. It became a skittering, like 1,000 crabs on tile. It was moving on all fours now. I could feel the wind of its movement. I could smell the rot. I hit the front door hard, my shoulder slamming into the wood. My fingers fumbled with the deadbolt. Click. Open. I threw myself onto the porch, tumbling down the concrete steps and landing in the dirt. I scrambled backward, crab walking away from the house, kicking up dust, gasping for air. I looked up at the doorway. The front door was wide open. The darkness of the hallway was swirling like ink, and standing right at the threshold was the thing. It stopped. It couldn't cross. The porch. The rule said to walk to the porch. The porch is safe. The porch is neutral ground. It stood there, framed by the doorframe, vibrating with rage. That vertical slit on its face opened wide, unhinging, stretching down to its chest. It let out a sound that I will hear in my nightmares until the day I die. It wasn't a scream. It was the sound of a tornado siren, distorted and slowed down. A mechanical, grinding wail that shook the windows of the house. It raised one long, multi-jointed finger and pointed at me. Then, it slammed the door shut. The force of the slam was so hard, it cracked the glass pane in the center of the door. I sat there in the dirt for 3 hours. I sat there until the sun came up over the cornfields. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just watched the door, waiting for it to open again, waiting for that thing to realize that a wooden frame can't stop it. But it didn't come out. I waited until the sun was high in the sky before I went back in. I had to. My car keys were on the kitchen counter. I walked into the house with a tire iron in my hand. The house was silent. The air was still.
The basement door was shut, and the heavy iron latch was down. I checked the padlock. It was still locked. It had never been opened. But there were scratches on the hallway floor, deep gouges in the hardwood, leading from the basement door to the spot where I had turned around. And there was a smell, a faint, lingering scent of ozone and rotting meat. I grabbed my keys, I grabbed my laptop. I drove to a motel 2 towns over. That's where I am now. I thought I was safe here. I thought I had escaped. But about 10 minutes ago, I heard a sound from the motel bathroom. Clank. The sound of a heavy iron latch lifting.
There is no basement in this motel. I'm on the 2nd floor. I'm looking at the bathroom door now. It's slightly ajar. The lights are flickering. I think I brought it with me. Or maybe, once you break a rule, the rule follows you. I'm going to post this, and then I'm going to walk out the front door of this room. I'm not going to run, and I am not going to look back. If you don't hear from me again, you know why. Follow the rules. For God's sake, follow the rules. And if you hear a latch lift in the middle of the night, don't be like me. Don't look back. Just walk. I didn't think the silence of a Kansas cornfield could be louder than a scream, but I was wrong. If you are reading this, if you found this transcript on a hard drive in a pawn shop or a forum thread buried on the dark web, listen to me. I am not writing this for clout. I am writing this so you don't buy the property on County Road 9. I am writing this because my hands are still shaking, and I need to get the logic of what happened out of my head before it eats me alive. We need to talk about rule number 4. The list the realtor left on the kitchen counter, the one stained with what I hoped was just rust, was specific. Rule number 4 stated, when you hear the floorboards creak on the 2nd floor, but you are the only one in the house, you must initiate the game. You have 60 seconds to hide. Do not hide under a bed. Do not hide in a closet with a mirror. And whatever you do, do not let your breathing synchronize with the scratching in the walls. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was local folklore to drive up the mystery of the listing. But at 2:13 a.m. on my 3rd night in the house, the ceiling above the living room groaned. It wasn't the settling of an old house. Old houses settle with a pop or a snap. This was weight. Heavy, shifting, deliberate weight. It sounded like someone dragging a sack of wet cement across the hardwood. I froze. My laptop screen was the only light in the room, casting long, unnatural shadows against the peeling floral wallpaper. The sound stopped. Then, a single, thunderous footstep directly above my head. 60 seconds. I didn't scream. Panic is a luxury you cannot afford in rural Kansas when the nearest neighbor is 3 miles of dirt road away. I moved. I killed the laptop light. Darkness swallowed the living room. My eyes hadn't adjusted yet, but I knew the layout. I had memorized it. That's survival rule number 1, know your terrain. I scrambled toward the kitchen pantry. It was tight, smelling of stale flour and dry rot, but it had no mirrors, and it wasn't under a bed. I slid inside, pulling the louvered door shut, leaving a crack barely wide enough to see through. I wedged myself between the shelves, my back against the cold plaster, my knees pulled to my chest. Then I checked my watch. 45 seconds had passed. The house went silent again, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the heavy, pressurized silence of a predator holding its breath. The air in the pantry grew thick. The temperature dropped, not gradually, but instantly, snapping the humidity out of the air and replacing it with a dry, metallic chill that tasted like copper pennies. Then I heard it. The stairs. There are 14 steps leading down from the 2nd floor. I know, because I counted them when I moved in. The thing coming down didn't use feet. It sounded like hands. Slap, drag, slap. It was moving with a fluid, broken rhythm, like a dog with too many joints in its legs. Slap, drag, step 4. Slap, drag, step 7. I pressed my hand over my mouth. The logic part of my brain, The part that works the night shift and pays taxes was screaming that this was an intruder, a crackhead from the next town over, a squatter. But intruders don't smell like that. The smell hit me before it reached the bottom of the stairs. It drifted through the cracks of the pantry door. It didn't smell like death. Death is natural. This smelled like ozone and wet dog hair. It smelled like the air right before a tornado touches down, mixed with the stench of spoiled milk. It reached the bottom of the stairs. I closed my eyes. Rule number 4 said to hide. It didn't say what happens if you get found. The list just ended there. The sound changed. It was on the linoleum of the kitchen floor now. The slapping noise stopped. It was standing. I could feel the displacement of the air. Something massive was standing 10 feet away from me. I heard a voice. It wasn't a demonic growl. It wasn't a ghostly whisper. That would have been easier to handle. "Hey, are you down here? The front door was open." My blood ran cold. It was the voice of the sheriff's deputy who had patrolled past the house yesterday. Officer Miller. It was his cadence, his Midwestern drawl. Perfect, indistinguishable. "This is Miller," the voice said, moving closer to the refrigerator. "I saw a light on, just checking inside. You okay?" My muscles locked up. I almost answered. The instinct to respond to authority, to safety, is hardwired into us. But then I remembered rule number 9. The police do not come to the house at night. If you see lights in the driveway, do not look out the window. If you hear a siren, it is not real. The thing in the kitchen wasn't Officer Miller. "I know you're in here," the voice said. The tone shifted. The helpfulness evaporated, replaced by a flat mockery of concern. "Come on out, buddy. I just want to help." It walked past the pantry. Through the slats of the door, I saw a shape. It was dark, but the moonlight filtering through the kitchen window caught the edge of it. It was wearing a uniform. It had the shape of a man, but the proportions were wrong. The arms were too long. They hung down past the knees, the fingers twitching at the sides. And the neck was twisted at an angle that would snap a human spine, the head lolling to the side like a broken doll. It stopped directly in front of the pantry door. I stopped breathing. I physically forced my diaphragm to freeze. My lungs burned. The adrenaline was dumping into my system so fast, my vision was vibrating. The thing stood there. It didn't move. It was listening. "I can hear your heart," it whispered. This time, the voice wasn't Miller's. It was mine. It was my own voice played back to me like a recording, but distorted, as if spoken through a mouth full of water. "I can hear your heart," it repeated, testing the syllables. This is the part nobody tells you about fear. You think you'll fight, you think you'll run. You don't. You turn into stone. You become an object. I stared at the gap in the wood, praying to a god I hadn't spoken to since childhood that the latch would hold. The handle of the pantry door rattled, just a little, a playful jiggle. It knew I was there. This wasn't hide and seek. This was a cat toying with a mouse before snapping its neck. I remembered the second half of rule number 4. Do not let your breathing synchronize with the scratching in the walls. A sound started low in the kitchen, scratching, not on the walls, but on the other side of the pantry door. Long, slow scratches. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The rhythm was slow, deliberate, one scratch every 3 seconds. My lungs were screaming. I needed air. I had to inhale. But if I inhaled, the sound would be audible. The pantry was an echo chamber. The scratching sped up. Scritch, scritch, scritch. I took a tiny sip of air through my nose. A whistle, a microscopic, high-pitched whistle of air. The scratching stopped instantly. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. The handle turned slowly. The latch clicked. The door creaked open an inch. I squeezed my eyes shut. I didn't look. Rule number 2. If you are found,
do not make eye contact. If you do not see it, it cannot fully see you. It's quantum logic applied to a nightmare. If I don't observe the state of the monster remains in flux. I felt warm, humid breath on my face. It smelled of raw meat. "Found you," my own voice whispered, inches from my ear. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I went to a place in my mind, a memory of a beach in Florida, bright sun, loud waves. I disassociated completely. I left my body in that pantry in Kansas and floated away. Something touched my knee, a long, cold finger. It traced a line up my thigh. It was testing the meat, checking for tension. Then, from outside, a sound cut through the night. A rooster crowed. It was 4:30 a.m.? No, it couldn't be. I had only been in there for minutes. But time in this house doesn't work right. The rules say time is fluid during the hunting hours. The presence in front of me stiffened. The warm breath vanished. The coldness receded. "Lucky," the voice hissed. It sounded like dry leaves skittering on pavement.
The pantry door slammed shut in my face. The force of it knocked a can of soup off the shelf, hitting my shoulder. I heard the footsteps again, fast this time. Not the slap drag of the descent, but a frantic, multi-limbed scurrying. It sounded like a giant spider running across the linoleum. It went up the walls. I heard the thudding on the ceiling, moving away toward the attic. I stayed in that pantry for 4 hours. I waited until the sun was blasting through the cracks in the door. I waited until I heard the actual mail carrier's truck on the gravel road outside. When I finally crawled out, my legs were numb. I couldn't walk. I dragged myself to the kitchen sink and vomited. I looked at the pantry door. There were scratches deep in the wood. 3 long gouges, cutting through the white paint down to the raw grain. They were at eye level. I packed a bag. I drove to the Motel 6 on the interstate. I'm writing this from room 214. I thought I was safe here. I thought leaving the property ended the game. But 10 minutes ago, I heard a sound from the room next door. The guest in room 215 is walking around. Slap, drag, slap, drag. And under the crack of the connecting door, I can smell ozone and spoiled milk. I think I broke a rule I didn't know existed. I think rule number 4 doesn't end when the sun comes up. I think the game follows you. If you buy the house in Kansas, follow the rules. But more importantly, never ever let it know you're afraid. It can smell fear. And right now, the smell of it is filling this motel room. I have to go. The handle on the connecting door is turning. The sunrise in Kansas doesn't break over mountain peaks. It doesn't filter through tall pines. It bleeds up from the dirt, a bruised purple bruise turning into a violent, blinding orange that sets the cornfields on fire. I didn't wait for the sun to fully hit the porch. Rule number 9 stated clearly that I had to be off the property line before the shadow of the weather vane touched the barn door. I didn't look at the weather vane. I didn't look at the barn. I just threw my duffel bag into the passenger seat of my truck and slammed the door. The sound was too loud. In the dead silence of that flat, endless horizon, the door slam sounded like a gunshot. I flinched, waiting for something to come running out of the cellar, waiting for that thing that mimicked my mother's voice to scream from the second-floor window. But nothing happened, just the wind. That constant, dry prairie wind that sounds like static on a dead radio channel. I turned the key. The engine sputtered. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it would crack the bone. Please, not now. Don't die on me now. The engine caught on the second turn, roaring to life, and I didn't let it idle. I tore out of that gravel driveway, kicking up a cloud of dust that I hoped would blind whatever was watching me leave. I drove. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. That was rule number 4. Never look in the rearview mirror until you hit the paved county road. I kept my eyes locked forward, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, staring at the endless grid of dirt roads. My peripheral vision was playing tricks on me. I swear I saw shapes keeping pace with the truck in the corn rows. tall, pale shapes that moved with disjointed, angular limbs, like a deer trying to walk on its hind legs, but wrong, all wrong. I hit the asphalt of County Road 14 doing 80 miles an hour. Only then did I exhale. The breath rattled out of me, shaking and wet. I wiped my forehead and my hand came away smeared with soot and dried blood. I don't remember getting cut. I don't remember touching the fireplace, but the smell was there. That scent of ozone and rotting meat that permeated the hallway every time the clock chimed 3. I needed coffee. I needed people. I needed to see something that wasn't rotting or trying to trick me into opening a locked door. I pulled into a gas station about 40 miles west. It was one of those isolated stops that feels like a liminal space floating in a sea of agriculture. The fluorescent lights inside were humming, buzzing like trapped flies. I walked in. My legs felt heavy, like I was walking through deep water. The clerk was a kid, maybe 19, acne scars, bored eyes, scrolling on his phone. He didn't look up when the bell chimed. I grabbed a coffee. It burned my hand, grounding me. I grabbed a pack of cigarettes, even though I quit 3 years ago. When I put them on the counter, the kid finally looked at me. He stopped chewing his gum. His eyes went wide, drifting from my face to my shoulder, then to the space just behind me. He didn't say, "Can I help you?" He didn't ask for payment. He just whispered, "You aren't supposed to bring them with you." My blood ran cold. I spun around. There was nobody there, just the racks of chips and the humming soda cooler. When I turned back, the kid was pale, staring at the floor. He pushed the cigarettes toward me. "Just go," he said. "It's on the house. Just get out." I left the coffee. I took the smokes. I got back in my truck and I drove until the gas light came on. Then I drove 10 miles more. I'm at a motel now. One of those chains right off the interstate where the trucks rattle the windows every time they pass. It's loud, it's dirty, it smells like stale tobacco and industrial cleaner. It is the most beautiful place I have ever been. But I can't sleep. I'm sitting here, staring at the door. I put the chair under the handle. I checked the closet. I checked the shower. But I can't shake the feeling that I missed something. A fine print clause in the contract. A rule I skimmed over in my arrogance. I keep thinking about rule number 7, the one about the basement door. It said, if you hear scratching, do not acknowledge it. If the scratching stops, hold your breath. I'm holding my breath right now because the scratching didn't stop when I left the house. It didn't stop when I was on the highway. I can hear it right now. It's not coming from the door. It's not coming from the window. It's coming from inside the ventilation grate above the bed. I'm writing this on my laptop using the motel Wi-Fi. I'm posting this everywhere I can. Not for clout, not for likes. I am posting this because I need a record. If I stop typing, I have to listen to the scratching. If I stop typing, I have to acknowledge that the rhythm of the scratch matches the beat of my own heart. I bought a farmhouse in rural Kansas because I wanted peace and quiet. I wanted to escape the rat race. I wanted a simple life. I got a bargain. I got a steal. If you see a listing for a 2-story Victorian on 5 acres in Pawnee County listed for a price that seems too good to be true, keep scrolling. Don't look at the photos, don't read the description, and for the love of God, do not call the realtor. The scratching has stopped. The scratching has stopped, and the vent cover is loose. I have to go now. I think I broke a rule. I think the rule was that you never ever leave. You just survive the night, over and over again. And I was foolish enough to think I could clock out. Don't come looking for me. Whatever you find in room 204 won't be me anymore. It'll just be another thing wearing a skin suit, waiting for the next person to make a mistake. End of log.